Hello everyone, my name is Sierra Postgres. I am from the Fort Worth Reservation, but I've lived here in Swiss Park.
Hello, my name is Daniela Chase. I am from MHA, and I'm going into general studies.
Hello everybody, my name is Kane Baxter. I'm from the Omaha tribe of Nebraska, and right now I'm doing my criminal justice degree.
I'm Phyllis Bird from Standing Rock, and I'm going into business.
Hi, my name is Anna Dominguez, and I am from Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, and I'm in my general studies right now.
For our topic, we chose the MMIW movement, and for our topic question, it is, what are the effects of MMIW on individuals and communities?
Some definitions we have, that some might not know or already know. To right seeing, which refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, then learning to use both eyes together for the benefit of all. Communities, which is a social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality, share government, and often have a common cultural and historical heritage. Affect, change which is a result of consequences of an action or other cause. Euro-Native Canadian, which is a Canadian that has European and Native. Appalled, which is greatly dismissed. Ignorance, lack of knowledge or information.
The DOI means the Department of Interior. The DOJ means the Department of Justice. The FBI means the Federal Bureau of Investigation. BIA means the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And then the US, United States, and MMIW meaning Missing Murdered Indigenous Women.
So the article that I have summarized was by Leanne Herder. It was the Missing and Murdered Haunt Tribal Nations. It just kind of starts off with some statistics. So Dr. Cheryl Crazybull, President and CEO of the American Indian College Fund, states that each Native person is about 1 degree of separation from another. That's why when one of them goes missing or is murdered, the impact ripples across communities, tribes, and nations. According to the Indian Law Resource Center, 4 in 5 Native American women have experienced violence, and more than half have experienced sexual violence. 75% of deaths of Native youth aged from 12 to 20 are caused by violence. 1/3 of Native women will be raped in their lifetime. In 2016, the Urban Indian Health Institute states nearly 6,000 Native women reported missing. Only 116 are accounted for in the National Missing Persons Database. There was controversy from the Gabby Petito case when she went missing. Many believe that she was found sooner because she was a white woman. Her case blew up on social media, and she was found 8 days after she was reported missing. A student at the Blackfeet Community College named Ashley Loring, heavy runner, went missing. For 6 years, her case remains unsolved. There are very few resources to try to gain justice for these cases. There are different ways people have been trying to resolve the lack of resources and healing the communities, such as Drew Landry creating a web portal to report a missing person. This not only sends a copy to the police, but to Laundry as well. Landry keeps in contact with the families to make sure every step is taken. This also helps families with limited resources, such as computers. Newton Onko was a student at the Indian American Institute for the Arts. He explains his desire to express MMIW through art. He has written a song about MMIW and hopes to heal, inspire, and raise awareness for the people. People in Indian countries say when a woman goes missing, she disappears twice. The first time her body disappears, the second her story disappears.
For my article, I will be summarizing one written by a woman named Michaela Gabriel. In short, she's describing the story told to her by her father about his cousin in 1979, her disappearance, and they would later find out her murder. She gone missing in early winter that year, was only found after the snow had melted some months later during the spring. Yet with little investigation on the officials' part and hardly any evidence present in her case had gone unsolved. This is a sentiment that is all too familiar with not only the older generation, but the younger of today as well. As we have seen, the law will look at our cases of our missing women and seemingly disregard them. This is evident in Miss Gabriel's story, as the only reason her father's cousin murderer was found was because 33 years later, he was on trial for a far more recent murder and had slipped up and confessed to the earlier one, yet was only punished for the most recent one. She describes in her article the lack of resources for her father's family back in 1979. And today, that same issue persists, and she goes on to explain about how indigenous families need some sort of aid and some way to cope that's offered to them through maybe different resources like calling centers, trauma therapy, or victim, just aids for the victims. With the MMIW movement ever growing, she felt the need to share her story with readers, not only to bring more awareness to the situation, but also to let readers and others who do not know of this situation that all of these people disappearing, all of these women being murdered aren't just statistics, they're still people. Many of them are mothers, sisters, daughters, aunties, cousins, all of that. And one thing that I found very moving about her article was that at the ending right there, where she decided to go on and like emphasize on how all of these people are seen as numbers through the statistics and when you search out the movement, but in reality they are all really just people. If somebody, everybody lost, whether it be a mother, grandmother, daughter, whoever.
So my article is basically fighting ignorance with education action for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And the article is by Erin White. Erin White is a former Euro Native Canadian who saw herself as more of a white passing woman all her life. Unaware of her Indigenous background issues, as one day Ramona sat her down and unveiled the wrenching truth of Indigenous women, girls, and the LGBTQ. They either have gone missing or murdered. This confused Erin because she didn't know the realities for Indigenous women, girls, and the LGBTQ community. This stressed her, so she continued to learn and educate herself about the trauma and realities of our Indigenous peoples. However, she noticed that there is little advocacy amongst the public eye. This issue was spoken of little in schools and personal conversations. The numbers have skyrocketed high of how much there were missing of were Indigenous girls. Overall, she was appalled. She wanted to know why this issue isn't talked about anywhere or in schools as well. Because this needs to be understood by everyone of how much Indigenous peoples continue to be exposed to violence as well. Thus began a spark for Erin. She found her resources that can help educators introduce the value of Indigenous women and girls, that in the classroom, this brings critical thinking, reflection, and can create voices for students throughout adulthood. She believes that education is needed because people use ignorance to vent their thinking and actions. Ignorance can no longer be an excuse as a resource, as resources are available such as the TRC, which is a program, and that brings justice to and rights to Indigenous peoples. She hopes that we as people can no longer use ignorance in defense anymore, because there are thousands of cases that are still unsolved, nor are they found. She wants to use education as a step forward to teach everyone about MMIW, which is going on today in communities in Manitoba, Canada, and throughout the country. That's my article.
Good.
My article was titled Treating Families and Victims of MMIW Tragedies by Samantha Gibbon. An Indigenous youth member had gone missing during Samantha's first year of medical school at the University of British Columbia. Samantha had worked to create spaces for sacred Indigenous youth advocating for education. In this instance, the precious youth was discovered after numerous search parties, alive but not well. Samantha was worried about the individual's future financial struggles and general health. She was scared for the MMIW victims as well as the mental and emotional conditions that the families would experience. As she merged into the world of medicine, she was strongly compelled to advocate for the wellness of the victims, such as the sacred youth and their families. Samantha saw a huge gap in the care provided for Indigenous patients and their families. The article then lists goals and ways in providing more deeply informed hostility care to our Indigenous brothers and sisters from a physician's view. The reason the article is directed towards physicians is due to the demand for cultural support for physicians as the pressures of providing care for the increasing amount of patients with more and more complex needs rise. And then the article then lists recommendations and common scenarios that physicians were making.
The article I chose concerns about the justice and what's being done concerning missing, murdered, Indigenous women and peoples. The DOJ and DOI had conducted a series of internal investigations across countless reservations within Canada and the United States regarding missing, murdered Indigenous women and peoples. Much of the reports from 2019 through 2021 detail about the severity of human trafficking, kidnapping, and violence amongst our peoples and what we can do as a nation to mend some of the crimes. A number of considerations are misreported by law enforcement when handling such cases. Some examples are underreporting, mainly due to mistrust of law enforcement or mistrust of the DOI and DOJ systems. Misclassifications of race, racial misclassifications result in an inaccurate number in death certificates, undercount of deaths, including murder, and statistics across national data. Along with the race, there is misclassifications of death. Many tribal members and family members have been reported to describe instances where the manner of death was misclassified as suicide or accidental death, and was therefore believed to not be the causes, in many cases across Canada and the US. The implementation of new laws are believed to assist in lowering such cases. Two recent laws or acts that have been made into headlines across the country for missing, murdered Indigenous peoples are the Savannahs Act and the Not Invisible Act. Although these acts do not require an updated data analysis on the number of reports or cases, implementation of these legal requirements are underway, as it is too early to tell any form or result or success at this point in time. Within such cases, in these acts are included reopening cold cases, data on successful recovery operations, financial assistance and searches among small or large communities, and reinforcing the federal response, as well as an updated database concerning accurate statistics. Although the DOI and DOJ are addressing the MMIW crisis, better planning and laws in place can help effectiveness amongst investigations on our homelands. Much of the investigators and detectives on these cases are unfamiliar with the reservations and the workforce being brought to them. The FBI and BIA follow information on such cases based on these agencies' policies and the acts in place by them. There is something being done, but very slowly, with little to no enforcement of these acts. Possible solutions would be reinforcement through law enforcement, meaning taking the laws, acts protecting Indigenous peoples seriously and upholding them as they had promised and intended to.
Good, good. So from your data, what were some solutions? Because we did hear some potential solutions.
Some solutions do circle back to the government and the laws that they have put in place. That would concern back to the article that I had with reinforcing the laws that they put in. They don't do much enforcement because these laws and acts aren't headlines anymore. When they were headlines, it was all you could see everywhere in the news. An example would be the Savannah's Act. You seen it on the news every weekend, every week for a solid 2 to 3 months, and that they were updating every week. We made progress on this, the data shows this. Since it's no longer in the headlines, there has been nothing being done. The laws and stuff aren't being reinforced, so nobody is being arrested for these cases that have gone cold.
Okay.
So I guess the solution would be to take it serious again as if it is in the headlines and to actually force law enforcement to uphold it as they promised.
My article listed a couple of solutions for like a physician and treating victims and families. So medical reluctance should be approached, acknowledged, and handled with dignity and respect. Due to a long history of trauma and bad medical experiences, many Indigenous people may be anxious or afraid to visit a doctor. Accept the possibility that traditional Indigenous culture and therapeutic traditions serve as the main source of healing. When feasible, have resources in the local language available and become familiar with the names of the nations where your practice is located. Recognize that in the event of fresh information in a missing person investigation, you can be the patient's first point of contact outside of consulting.
Very good, which really kind of blends in with what Danielle said, even more specifically. Good. Any other solutions?
Yeah, from my article, I pretty much derived almost the same as Danielle's. It really does stem back to the investigators involved in the cases, the police force and the judicial system as a whole. There seems to be an innate racism involved in it that makes them pretty much disregard these cases after little to no investigation. So finding a way to push the justice system in the right direction, away from those biases, away from those racist ideals, I believe would really help towards solving these cold cases and any future ones that may arrive, along with maybe allowing reservations to try and dish out their own justice to non-native members who come onto their land and commit these crimes. Because a lot of people don't know that if you're not a part of the tribe and you go onto a reservation, they can't arrest you for any crimes you do, and they sure as hell can't try you for anything either. So I feel like both of those topics need to be addressed. That's pretty much something I derived from my article.
Good.
To kind of just piggyback off of what everybody else has been talking about, I think a big part of it is obviously the jurisdiction also, as I've read a bunch of other articles about how there's a lot of confusion when it comes to like the FBI coming onto reservations. I think another big part of it is awareness. In my article, they kind of mentioned a few names of people, students who have kind of went out and did their own thing with the web portal, and then the other student making songs and everything. I think that can tell us that no matter like what kind of resources we have, we can bring awareness in our own kind of way.
That's called grassroots organization, when you start putting it, making a website, a TikTok about a particular issue to generate just information.
Yeah, I think her acts that she had mentioned were, and how she said that because with the Savannah's Act and there's not so much platform on it now, I think that we could easily bring a lot of these cases to social media in order to bring back all the cases, the unsolved cases.
Well, like she said, there's not enough advocacy around. There's not enough headliners, and you don't really see it on social media. You only see it like within communities, like Facebook and all that stuff. So another solution I would bring to around would be get involved with your tribal leaders. Bring up all these issues because they're not talking up with it. Our tribes, like say if you bring it up to your tribal chairman, tribal chairwoman, council, that we need to get them involved more, because it's not, cases go cold every day. Not everyone gets found or solved or anything like that, arrested. So we need our tribal government to get involved more, finding, solutions. Just get involved with your tribe and try to have them understand how important this is, because there's not enough advocacy around. So that would be one of my solutions to summarize it up.
Did you come across in your data collection a particular tribe that has done just phenomenal advocacy for MMIW and it's just continuing?
In mine, I didn't find any specific tribe or reservation that was able to do advocacy that made a difference. The only differences that were able to be made was by the government and students coming up to work for the government. The stigma around Native Americans and missing peoples make it very, very difficult for brown people to come forward about crimes against them. The government is known to not take a lot of them very seriously, so our reservations and people have just been finding it easier to work their way up into the government to make changes themselves.
Good. And just here, we have a criminal justice associates and we have a bachelor's degree. We have a criminal justice club. So just think if there's just one student in that criminal justice club that starts advocacy for this particular issue. Because there are other issues as well that they do discuss in their monthly meeting. But sometimes in grassroots organization, it just takes one human to push to make a difference. And as I hear Savannah's act not in the footlight or the limelight, it is, however, law. It got done, which is not an easy task. And that was our former Senator Heidi Heitkamp who pushed that along with a couple others nationally. So it's like, it's still there and it's law. So they can't take it away unless they make amendments to it. So even though we don't hear about it, it is still there. And that's the beginning step. It was huge. And it was awful what happened and why it had to happen to get that law passed. But it got done. And it got done pretty quickly compared to some things in DC. So good. Any questions from the audience after your lunch and your Indian tacos today and puppies? Good work.